Hello, I'm Deborah Curry, the CEO of the FICPA, and I am here with members of our Diversity and Inclusion Roundtable. I have our members with us, Carey, Simone, and Marianela, and we have just finished going through a great exercise that includes our Diversity and Inclusion Roundtable topics. And I thought that we would expand on them today and ask our panelists what they learned today from the Diversity and Inclusion Roundtable that they may not have known before. So Marianela, why don't you give us one of your clues?
Yeah, I think to me it was interesting to see stats behind business profitability and their efforts towards diversity. To me, it's always been near and dear to my heart, but to actually see stats indicating that the more a company is encouraging diversity and inclusion within their company, it has been proven to improve results for the business.
Very true.
For me, I want to say one of my biggest takeaways was how broad the definition of diversity was and inclusion. I think when you think about diversity, you might think, as I'm being in a minority, I want to be included, but the broad perspective of diversity and getting into that and what inclusion really means, being valued, and along with other things, I think that was a really good takeaway for me and something that I could, okay.
And I mean, piggybacking,
Yeah.
taking away from what you just commented on, it wasn't just understanding what diversity and inclusion really meant. It's also understanding that you can have diversity within an organization, but if you're not also including those diverse employees, that you're not really, broadening the diverse environment within your organization. So you're not really meeting your end goal.
That's true. That the culture itself is what inclusion is all about.
Yeah.
Correct.
And making people feel comfortable that you have a diverse staff, but everyone works together and they feel like they are in an organization that appreciates each and everyone's unique capabilities. Speaking to that then, what could an organization do to focus on or make the best use of their diverse staff and culture?
Right, and I had a point on that too, because it shouldn't just be about creating a brand that says that they're focusing on diversity and inclusion, but I think it starts with core values of a business. It has to be something that every employee in that organization is living, because you can't just say on the top that we are, making sure that we're being diverse and inclusive if not everyone under that main leader is also practicing those same values. So I think it starts with core values of the business.
And I think that's, I mean, one of the women within our group mentioned that she had a very specific case where one of the employees was not necessarily embracing the diversity aspect of her business, and that caused that employee to leave. So it's very important that everybody, from the tone at the top to the receptionist within your company, embrace those core values.
And to add to that, specifically what you want to do is some of the things that a corporation could do is making sure that when you have certain teams in place, there is representation in those teams. So whether it's developing a policy or procedure surrounding that to make sure that there is that inclusion embedded in whatever team that is that you're forming, I think those are baby steps towards the bigger goal of making sure that everyone is included. You have to have a diverse team, and I think that would be a good start.
And that puts a responsibility on the employers at the top level, that they need to actually walk the walk, and they also need to be able to train employees. I would think that this is a very unique subject that we are not learning about elsewhere. It's something that's coming into the workforce, and probably steps on how to think about diversity and inclusion and how to incorporate programming as well as just your own inner thoughts is something we could all learn from. And so I think the employers have a responsibility now to look into programs that could help them learn about diversity and inclusion and what they do to include it in the organization. So I think that's real important.
Yes.
As you pointed out, that there's evidence that diversity and inclusion has a business case. that there's overwhelming evidence that businesses will do better. So to that, how do we face the fact that organizations are still failing to improve their diversity, particularly on boards and at senior levels of management? Is there something that we see organizations failing to do, or are they sort of stuck where they are?
I think it starts with the recruitment process, for sure. Just piggybacking off of what you said about the training, simple things like cultural bias training, especially for your recruiting staff, for your folks coming in, you want to make sure those inherent biases are noticed, and what can you do to surpass that. So I think starting at the recruiting level and making sure that when you're interviewing for certain positions, especially director and above, there's a diverse pool of candidates, and making sure that representation is there. So granted, the evidence, it's fine, but unless you actually put it down and outline it on paper and include these trainings for your recruiting staff, your HR staff, and everyone in between, I think that's probably a really good way to kind of tackle that issue.
I also think that one of the efforts that can be made is not just recruiting staff that's diverse, but also making the management that's in place currently understand how to communicate better with that staff. An example that was given was majority of the time women tend to make a suggestion in a question format. And men don't always understand that communication style very well, because to them it's not a suggestion, it's a question. So how do you make a male manager, understand that suggestion better?
Okay, so the training on how communication works and how our own internal biases affect the way that we see what's going on in the workforce, and then how it affects who we promote, who we don't promote, and how we train them.
And I was going to add a point to Simone, which was a very good one. One of the things that we did, because human nature is we tend to hire people that look and sound just like us, right? We want little mini-me's. So one of the things that we had instituted for our hiring process was a scorecard, so that you really scored people based on them demonstrating that they had the skill set for the job that you're looking to hire, versus being kind of swayed one way or another just because of our own internal bias. So just kind of taking, the subjective part and just looking at kind of someone meeting all the punch list items based on a scorecard.
We had a long discussion about how a company should also look like its clients or the individuals that it's serving. If you have a very diverse clientele, then are you missing a business opportunity if you don't look like your clients, if you also don't understand the cultures and the languages? And I know that we had a long discussion on that. So why don't you just give a few examples of how that could help?
Right. I mean, for my particular business, we're within a community that's predominantly Eastern European. So that was very helpful because there's different communication style. And what I found is from my much younger staff is for them, for instance, my preferred communication style as a millennial is texting. And I admit to that, I text quite a lot. For my employees who are around, a couple of years younger than me, for them it's picking up the phone and talking with me over the phone or in person. So they understand that with our clientele, because they also happen to be Eastern European, that's what the client prefers. That's her preferred method of communication. Whereas that would have been lost on me, because I would have seen it differently.
No, I think I gave that example where just understanding the different cultures, not so much just the language, and that's going to set you apart. I know I had someone reach out to me, talk about the power of social media. I had someone reach out to me on Facebook and say, I see that you're a financial advisor, I'm looking for someone who is Latin. I can't find a financial advisor who is Latin and speaks Spanish. That would make my parents feel some comfort level that you can speak their language. So again, it goes back to culture and just communication, being able to speak the same language.
That is an advantage for your businesses to
Yes.
be able to do so. And you work with students all the time.
Yes, so the point that I brought up for that was not just from a client perspective, developing that culture, but also trying to develop it from college. Teaching in college, we said that we know that the college population is very diverse now, and in years to come, even more diverse. Over 50% will be minorities. So as a result of that, having the representation in the profession to be able to attract the talent that you will eventually put forward to the client is extremely important, because the foundation has to be there for you to get the folks that you need to put in front of these clients. Yes.
Exactly. Is there any other particular takeaway that you had from today's meeting? Just in general, I was wondering, did you think that you would find such consensus among the individuals at the roundtable that we all were in a situation where we know it exists, but we need to learn more about it?
Yeah, I think that was fascinating. I mean, we all come from different industries, and we all kind of face the same issues and recognize the importance of this. So my key takeaway is the most powerful part for me was diversity is one thing, and trying to attract so that you appear to be diverse. But I think what you do on the back end is also of probably more important is the inclusion part, which is being open to new ideas, to different perspectives. So that to me was the key takeaway, and focusing on the culture of our firm.
Yes, so the discussions about moving from theory to practice was stellar, I think, among our group. And it was really a joy to just be among awesome women, to be able to share our ideas, and we hope that they will be taken outside of the room and on a bigger platform, because a lot of the statistics that were shared with us, I think it was very alarming. Things that I didn't know, and I think, I know a lot about diversity and inclusion, but there were some still very alarming, and it's 2018, so I'm like, what is going on? When is it going to change? So I think it's a good start. We're very grateful for the platform, and I think more conversations need to be had in getting the buy-in of the powers that be to have this on their agenda.
Very true.
I agree. I'm going to echo the same comments you two made, which is it is alarming to see some of the stats. Some were good, obviously, to see that diversity and inclusion can really help a workplace to be more profitable and to attract more talented individuals as well. But it is alarming that it's 2018 and we're still having these talks, and there's really not a particular platform in place to make a lot of these theories practice within an organization.
So we have a long way to go yet.
Yes.
We have a long way to go, a lot more education, and we will continue these discussions at our diversity and inclusion roundtables and continuing to build the program here with the FICPA so that we can be of assistance to our members in learning about diversity and inclusion and what we can do to make the profession a better place.
Excellent.
So thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.